Good afternoon. I'm Rachel Beld, the Vista Chamber CEO. Thank you for joining us for Vista's State of the Community, presented by Tri-Citymedicalcenter. We are thrilled to bring you this live event, live from the Film Hub in downtown Vista. And we are honored to have so many distinguished guests with us today who will provide updates regarding the city, education, health, and the economy. And at this time, I would like to introduce Vista's own mayor, Judy Ritter. Please join me on stage, Mayor.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor as your mayor to welcome you to the Chamber's State of the Community address today. Welcome to our businesses, our business leaders, and our residents who are engaged in this virtual address, and thank you to the CEO, Rachel Beld, and the Vista Chamber's Board of Directors for hosting this event. 2020 has been a year unlike any the city of Vista has seen before. When I spoke to you last January, we were celebrating our local economy and our continued prosperity, and I confidently forecasted that 2020 would be another solid, outstanding year. Only 6 weeks after that speech, everything changed. Our priorities shifted as a year full of challenges compiled our business owners, residents, and local government to adapt to new lifestyles, reimagine how things were done, and become more resilient in our responsive efforts to the COVID-19 pandemic. Even in the best case scenario, these last 10 months have put us all on edge. Yet as the COVID-19 crisis continued, the city has seen the very best of humanity through the residents of our city. We can all be proud of that. Thank you to our local heroes like Vista residents Roz Lehman and Sandy Shea, who rose to the challenge and began sewing masks in their home during the early days of the pandemic. Roz and Sandy heard that hospitals were running low on face coverings and generously donated masks to the Tri-City Medical Center, local pharmacists, assisted living facilities, and to our senior center. Roz and Sandy are just two Vistans who gave back to the community during the beginning of the stay-at-home order, and I know there are many more unsung heroes in our community. Thank you to all Vistans for rising to the challenge and responding to the need during this unprecedented time, and to our local doctors, nurses, grocery workers, and our firefighters and sheriff's deputies who are still working on the front lines of the pandemic day after day, and to our businesses who stepped up, such as Misadventure Distillery. When the company's distillery and tasting room closed during the first shutdown, owners Whit Regali and Sam Cheraskin realized their industry knowledge and license to produce ethanol could help save their business from closing. They quickly switched from making vodka to making desperately needed hand sanitizer during the difficult first months of the pandemic. Within 1 week, they were able to produce alcohol for hand sanitizer and ship over 20,000 bottles to both consumers and wholesalers every week. The company supplied large orders to clinics, hospitals, veterans groups, and local governments, including the city of Vista. To help keep our fire, law enforcement, and public works staff safe while serving the public, another local company, Dr. Bronner's, donated cases of hand sanitizer and soap. Even though they were at capacity, as a critical provider of personal sanitizers and soap, the Dr. Bronner's team took the time to deliver the donated cases to the city. Many other companies stepped up as well, changing their operations, such as Solitube, who pivoted from making home skylights to making face shields for the health organizations, and Allele, the cycling business owned by Ryan Cady, who said he built his business in Vista because he believes our city has so much to offer. His team swapped out cycling operations and began making face masks for the public. Tragically, the number of people in our region unable to put food on their tables grew exponentially during the COVID-19 crisis. The North County Food Bank, which opened in the business park last year, provided nutritious food to more than 400 nonprofit groups with feeding programs. Since the new warehouse opened, it has doubled the food bank's outreach and services in North County. Through nonprofit partnerships, CEO Jim Floros and his team are now serving 30,000 more people every month in communities throughout North County. Let's hear from Jim Floros now.
About 4 or 5 years ago, we saw there was a lot of needs going unmet in North County, and that's why we expanded and took on the North County Food Bank. And just since that time, immediately we added 40 or 50 additional nonprofit partners, doubled the amount of food that we were distributing, quadrupled the number of backpack schools, but still we needed a facility that could really support our efforts, and that's why we moved into this facility just about a year ago here in Vista, and it has been instrumental to our success in helping people in need in this community. You know, we have a saying, we're only as good as the people who support us, and the city of Vista just could not be more instrumental to our success. They've been such great hosts. They've rallied around us. They've done food drives. They've done fundraisers for us. I mean, really, they've been a true partner in our efforts to feed so many people who are going without food today.
Let me say again to all our businesses and nonprofit organizations, thank you. As I look back on the actions the City of Vista has taken to address frontline issues, I am proud of the strong leadership I've seen displayed by our City Council, the steady leadership of our city management in ensuring our operations continue seamlessly, the business owners struggling to follow the often changing rules of the stay-at-home order, and the community that calls Vista home. I'd like to reflect on and share steps the city has taken, as well as innovative services and programs we have offered to address the pandemic. In March, all non-essential city facilities were closed, yet the amount of innovation, thoughtfulness, and flexibility our Vista staff demonstrated in continuing to provide high-quality services to our customers and to businesses while working remotely was remarkable. The city's essential employees worked tirelessly to keep our city safe and operational. Our senior center, understanding the more vulnerable seniors' fears of venturing outside their safe homes, added additional home delivery and pickup meal services for the community. In June, the Civic Center reopened with safety protocols in place to once again serve the public and city customers in person. To better serve and provide a safe and free site for residents, we partnered with the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Community Clinic to open a free COVID-19 testing center for the public to be tested without an appointment. Yet, even as the city began navigating how to provide ongoing services to the public, the pandemic took a damaging toll on our economy, just as it has done around the globe. Unfortunately, slowing the spread of the coronavirus also meant slowing economic activity. We got to work quickly, developing an economic recovery plan in response to the devastating impacts on the business community. We identified challenges and solutions for the local businesses by conducting Vista Cares retention visits to determine how the city could support them. Our economic development team organized stand-up business assistance virtual workshops featuring representatives from the governor's office, national and local business experts, and others who provided information, resources, and tips on navigating the pandemic. The feedback was positive, and Economic Development Director Kevin Ham said many business owners found the workshops valuable and appreciated the opportunity to participate. A Vista is Open website was launched to promote takeout and essential business services, which were open and ready to serve the community. For individual support, economic development staff provided business assistance through the Innovate 78 website and by email and a business hotline. We began rolling out business support initiatives, and city policies and programs were reviewed and temporarily changed to better support the business sector and minimize costs, burdens, and barriers to reopening. We also adapted our permitting services to facilitate outdoor spaces for restaurants and personal services, and expanded temporary signage options to help the businesses market their services. By assisting in reactivating our storefronts, the city has been helping to bring more people downtown who, in turn, also frequent our other downtown venues. Now, let me introduce you to small business owner Riley Harrington, who owns Refined off Main Street, a fun and rustic vintage clothing shop. Riley, along with the help from her parents, renovated the previously occupied North Coast Patrol space. Riley showed her indelible spirit during this past year and personified some of the partnerships we created to help support the business community.
I graduated from Vista High School, so I've always been a part of the Vista community, but I've never really felt that aspect of community until the pandemic hit, and I was kind of left alone, left in the dark. It felt like, to me, being, my doors had to close. I wasn't prepared for that. The understanding of the pandemic and not knowing when you could reopen the doors, the uncertainty of bills and everything else. It felt really good knowing that I wasn't alone during the pandemic and the city had my back. I know that if I needed help or I needed something, I could call and somebody would be there immediately. They were sending me all the resources. They were making sure that I knew I wasn't alone.
Our Main Street is lined with thriving and quaint shops that have played a key role in new economic activity in our downtown core. These unique retail shops, such as Refined, are helping to attract residents and visitors back to the heart of our town, and they are building a sense of place for our whole community. As lockdowns throughout the state of California and other parts of the nation and globe continued to fluctuate over a dramatic rise in COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations, scientists and medical researchers began working around the clock on promising vaccines and tests, two vital keys in shifting society back to normal. In fact, the vitally important COVID-19 test kit market could exceed $15 billion this year alone, according to a report from Global Market Insights. One company that has ramped up its production of COVID-19 tests is San Diego-based Q Health. Q's tests are in such demand that the company has expanded its operations into Vista. Q began moving into its 197,000 square foot facility in our business park in October and was fully operational by December. This additional facility will be used for the production of Q COVID-19 test cartridges. Q plans to hire an additional 500 employees, with more expected in the future as the company continues to grow in research and manufacturing. From our large to our small businesses, we salute you, especially through these challenging times. Our businesses are still in shifting phases of reopening, and we will continue to support them and help prevent the damage caused by COVID-19 from further disrupting our economy. We understand the economic effects these events will continue to create, and our city teams know they may require new solutions. We are up to the challenge. Vista has a long-standing recognition of being fiscally responsible, relying on various revenue streams to balance our annual operating budget. Thanks to the Council's decision to continue increasing our reserves last year, Vista has been able to absorb the initial impact of revenue loss from sales and gas tax revenues and the loss of fees for service programs that were temporarily stopped due to the pandemic. With our smart planning during previous years, we have been able to mitigate many of the pandemic impacts, provide rental assistance through federal and state funding to our residents, and still maintain healthy fund balances for any other unforeseen circumstances, all without severely curtailing services as some other cities have been forced to do. We took actions to restrict overspending, and our budget remains balanced. Now for some positive news on the economic development front. The Ayers Hotel, located in Southeast Vista, opened its doors in July. It's in the perfect location near the Vista Business Park and neighboring communities. Our business park alone includes more than 900 local, national, and global companies. This boutique-style hotel is poised to serve both the business park and residential communities when the economy reopens. This new addition to our hotel sector provides Vista with the opportunity to build an even stronger economy, as well as providing for job creation and community needs. The city's largest downtown development project on Main Street, the Ryland, opened for leasing in September. This project complements our city's vision for a more walkable and vibrant downtown neighborhood corridor. We look forward to all of the 126 luxury units being occupied and the additional economic activity these new residents will bring to our downtown. Our downtown is expanding with Urban Barn, the new home improvement store with a selection of vintage and lifestyle goods, opening on Main Street, and Best Pizza and Brew opening in the former Town Hall Public House on South Santa Fe Avenue, and Barrel and Stave in the former Mother Earth location. I'm looking forward to these new additions to our downtown Vista. And in the business park, the new Amazon warehouse will be opening in a few weeks and is hiring 500 employees. Even with the slowing economy and spiking COVID-19 cases, the city continued to invest in infrastructure improvements such as the Bub Williamson Park upgrades, roadside landscaping, fire protection, and law enforcement services, all of which are fundamental to Vista's quality of life. Our public works crews beautified our gateway entranceways, installed additional landscaping with native plants along Main Street, removed trash, debris, and graffiti to enhance our city's appearance, and maintained our city facilities, roads, and sewer lines. Our building inspectors, planners, and engineers kept up with our city and private construction projects and made sure all of them remained on track. We managed to install a new Kites Over Vista exhibit downtown, and with the help of local artists, painted our remaining utility boxes throughout the city with the Vista in Bloom program. And I'm pleased to say we ended the year on a good note. the city marked a significant milestone on the Paseo Santa Fe project in December. The council and I celebrated the unveiling of the new entranceway arch installed at Civic Center Drive and South Santa Fe Avenue, thus signifying the completion of this three-phase improvement project. After more than 2 decades, the city's vision to revitalize the downtown corridor along South Santa Fe has come to fruition. This is a very momentous occasion in the city of Vista. The newly finished Paseo Santa Fe corridor complements our downtown district and enhances our community. Our local downtown businesses and neighborhoods will benefit, as well as those who drive or walk along the newly refurbished street. The Paseo Santa Fe corridor now includes 3 roundabouts with beautiful sculptures placed in their centers. Each sculpture, the Portal, the Aspire, and Prima Vista, were created by local and talented artists. While the benefits are considerable, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the city understands that the construction impacted the community. We appreciate everyone's patience as we work to improve the downtown core. This vision has now become a reality, and we look forward to the long-lasting benefits the project will create for our community for years to come. In 2020, Safety.com named Vista as one of the safest cities in California. Vista was ranked in the top 25 for its combined ranking of public safety scores, as well as financial security metrics within the community. Thanks to Captain Justin White and the men and women of the Vista Sheriff's Department, they have done outstanding work in keeping our city protected and safe. And thank you to the Vista Fire Department for their excellent work on the front lines, transporting COVID patients and providing other medical services, putting out fires and responding to emergencies. Congratulations to Chief Ned Vanderpool and his team for the recently awarded American Heart Association EMS Gold Plus Award. This honor recognizes emergency medical service organizations for their commitment and dedication in applying high standards of pre-hospital care in the treatment of cardiac emergencies. Our firefighter paramedics play a vital role in the care for those who experience severe heart attacks, and this program helps in the treatment of them. The quality of life for our residents depends on the safety of our neighborhoods, how we respond to public safety emergencies, and how well we prepare for disasters. Thank you to the Vista Fire and the San Diego Sheriff's Departments for protecting and serving our community. While many of our community events were canceled this year, we were determined to end the year with a safe and fun event to make our residents smile. We accomplished this with our new annual Jingle Terrace Park light display. This free drive-through event featured holiday-themed light displays along the driving loop in Brengle Terrace Park. Visitors were captivated by the displays of holiday lights depicting many of Vista's special and unique amenities. Visitors stepped up to help the North County Food Bank at the event by donating over $30,000 and 12,000 pounds of canned food. The food bank was astounded by the donations raised and food collected from the event. Our residents and visitors personified the holiday spirit with their generous donations, and we hope to continue this partnership with the North County Food Bank next year. Our city's progress and successes are the result of a collective effort on the part of our elected officials, our city staff, community partners, business leaders, and most of all, our residents. This video provided a quick snapshot on our past year, and I want to acknowledge the Vista Chamber and videographer Chris Ryan for their partnership in creating it. More than ever, I believe our city is well situated to weather the storms of any other unforeseen challenges and well positioned to continue delivering the essential services our residents rely upon. During this new year, our main focus is to shift the local economy back on its positive trajectory. Sorry, you guys, couldn't get that out today. We will help local businesses address the ongoing challenges stemming from COVID-19 and support our residents with affordable housing needs. As we continue to steer our way through the pandemic, I ask for your support as we will work together to battle this virus. In closing, I know that the road ahead may seem long. However, I'm genuinely hopeful for our city's future as we plan our next steps to stimulate the economy and recovery and growth. If we endeavor together, we will prosper. Together, we will continue to create a great future for our city. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter, for your comments today. And I'd also like to extend my appreciation to you and the Vista City Council for your leadership during this time. And now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our partners whose support makes this event possible. First, I want to acknowledge Tri-City Medical Center, who's a proud partner of the Vista Chamber of Commerce. They've been serving the North County community for nearly 60 years and are committed to advancing the health and wellness of the community we all serve. I would also like to thank our event sponsors, the Film Hub, Cal State University San Marcos, SDG&E, EDCO, and Hildreth Media Group. We appreciate your support. And on behalf of the Vista Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and staff, I'd like to thank you, our community, for stepping up to support our local businesses during this time. Vista is home to so many creative and resilient companies, and we are so proud to serve them. To those of you watching online, thank you for tuning into this virtual address. And I want to encourage you to submit questions for our speakers via email to info@vistachamber.org. We will collect the questions and ask them at the end of the presentations. This past year has been a challenging one for many organizations, and the Chamber is no exception. And while we were disappointed not to host the Strawberry Festival in May or the Christmas Parade in December, we were grateful for the opportunity to roll up our sleeves, dig in, and help our member businesses when they needed us most. Communicating important information in a timely manner is our goal. And because you were busy running your businesses, we spent hours culling through documents, emails, links, and websites to provide concise yet thorough resource guides, more than 50 of them. And your friendly chamber team combed through pages of legislation, state and county guidance, city permit requirements, grant and loan applications, webinars, and educational opportunities to share with our members the most important and relevant information. We also included community resources like access to childcare, food, diapers, and other toiletries, as well as connections to our community partners. We alerted you about changes to health orders, business restrictions, school openings, and legal rulings, and we made over 1,000 phone calls checking in on our members and compiling needs. We are proud to have served this role for our community. And while we shared information, we also went to bat for our businesses. From the very start of the pandemic, we worked to advocate for our membership, pushing for legislation to provide financial resources, push back on closures when appropriate, and signed on to multiple coalitions to amplify the voice of Vista businesses at all levels of government. We promoted our nonprofit members by sharing their fundraising needs within our network at a time when in-person events simply aren't an option. And connecting our community to food was a major focus of the Chamber this year. Whether it was donating peanut butter to scare away hunger or contributing cash and cans at Jingle Terrace Park, our Vista community stepped up in a major way to support the North County Food Bank and to fight hunger. Connecting community needs with our business members is our ultimate goal. And when the Vista Chamber heard that Vista Unified was serving more than 35,000 take-home meals a week last spring, we knew we could help these families in our local restaurants. In partnership with the Oceanside Chamber of Commerce and San Diego North Economic Development Council, we developed a program where we purchased gift cards from local restaurants and donated them to Vista Unified to share with families in need. Thanks to a generous $50,000 donation from Genentech, half of which was allocated to the Vista Chamber, we were able to purchase more than $25,000 in gift cards at locally owned Vista restaurants and provide these cards to families in need via the Vista School District. I have to say that North County Cares is the program I'm the most proud of this year. Another way we supported Vista businesses is with promotion. Kent Lighthold, our Community and Member Engagement Director, recorded and posted more than 100 business promotion videos to Facebook and Instagram. The response to these man-on-the-street style videos was a bit overwhelming, and Kent is already a bit of a local celebrity. We improved the digital version of our Vista magazine and included hot links throughout the publication and boosted the online distribution. And we also partnered with the City of Vista on the Goose Chase Scavenger Hunt app and Vista Bucks gift card program, and we're excited about the next phase of these programs launching in the coming months. We didn't let physical distancing keep us from connecting our businesses to each other. We launched Members Helping Members, focused on opportunities for member businesses to support each other, and we continued to host online mixers and committee meetings. And in some ways, virtual meetings allowed for even deeper engagement, particularly with our elected officials who could zoom in from Sacramento, DC, or their home to update our members about important news, legislation. We also co-hosted 2 virtual candidate forums. In other big news, the Vista Chamber moved this past year. The decision to sell our building on Main Street and relocate was originally made to strengthen our financial position, but it also netted us an amazingly creative and collaborative community in our new home at the Film Hub. So let's take a moment to learn a bit about the Film Hub now.
The Film Hub is the future of co-working right in downtown Vista. Get energized to go to a safe work environment that is clean and sanitized. Create video content, live stream events, and all your marketing material in our audio and video facility. The Film Hub. Do your best work here.
Pretty cool, right? We are so thrilled to call the Film Hub our new home. Looking ahead to 2021, we're enthusiastic for what the future holds. We will continue to support and advocate for our businesses, and we will enhance the value of benefits to our members. As part of that expanded membership benefits in 2021, we're introducing a series of quarterly events to provide opportunities for education and networking for interest groups such as nonprofit organizations, young professionals, women, and specific industries. We also just launched a new website, which has several more features to roll out in the coming weeks, including a podcast highlighting the movers, shakers, and changemakers of Vista. We cannot wait to share it with you. Investing in our youth and education is as important as ever, and our Rising Star program is in its 6th year. Since its inception, we have given more than $50,000 in scholarships to high school seniors in Vista. We've expanded our partnership with the Vista Education Foundation to multiply the impact of our education committee and to invest in workforce development. We will also provide VEF with staff support and help develop digital programs which foster arts, technology, and internship programs for our students. And we have plans to launch a Young Entrepreneurs program this fall. By investing in students today, we're helping to shape our future workforce and the next generation of entrepreneurs. In closing, I want to thank our Vista Chamber team, Kent, Kathy, and Paula, for your tireless work in supporting our member businesses. And thank you to our amazing board of directors who manage their own businesses while investing time and energy into supporting the Chamber. And lastly, I want to thank you, our members, who've invested in our community by being part of the Vista Chamber. I'm so incredibly proud of our businesses who've had to step up, step out, and push themselves in ways we never imagined. Kudos to you all. I know the road to recovery from the impacts of COVID-19 will be challenging, but your Vista Chamber is here. We're working for you and we're cheering you on. So let's do this together. Thank you. And now I'd like to take a moment to thank Cal State University San Marcos for their partnership in bringing this event to our community today. And now I'd like to introduce our next speakers. Dr. Matt Doyle is the Superintendent of Schools for Vista Unified School District. He's spent more than 30 years in education at every level. In addition, I'd like to introduce Cipriano Vargas, who's the President of our School Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Rachel. On behalf of the Vista Unified School Board of Trustees and the entire district, I would like to thank Rachel Beld, the members of the Vista Chamber of Commerce, Mayor Judy Ritter, the City Council members, for their unwavering leadership and advocacy for our great city this past year. It is a true pleasure and a privilege to share this time with you to report the state of community for education in Vista. Today I've invited our board president, Cipriano Vargas, to join me in delivering a brief report. We will follow up this statement today with a longer report that will be published in our community update. As a community and a school district, we have experienced the most challenging year in memory. Most regrettably, we have lost many members of our community. We are deeply saddened by the loss of life and send our condolences and sympathies to the families during this difficult time. Let us take a moment to honor those within our community we have lost. It is times like these that we are compelled to fall back on our collective courage, commitment, and resolve as a community and as a school district to provide for our families and our students. Servant leadership shines brightest in times of tremendous need. I'm proud to report that the Vista Unified School District has not wavered during this challenging time. President Vargas would like to highlight our most recent work with equity that underscores our commitment to all students and families. President Vargas.
Good afternoon. We as a nation have gone through some of the most challenging times in recent history. But as a school board, we are committed to our students and our community. We are tasked with educating young minds. This means tackling head-on the educational inequities and disparities we have within our own system. This work cannot be done alone, and together as teachers, administrators, classified workers, and school board members, we have started on this critical work. Our school board is committed to rising to the challenge. We have created our Superintendent's Council for Equity and Anti-Racism that is tasked with bringing back recommendations to the board. Under the guidance of Nicole Anderson, our entire school board is going through a series of workshops for a better understanding on how we can make an impact through a school governance lens. We do this because our students deserve the best, and when our most vulnerable students are supported, our entire community stands to benefit. We know that things will not change overnight, but collectively, we will move forward with our values and a budget that reflects the needs of all of our students. In addition, I would like to recognize Mayor Judy Ritter, our City Manager Patrick Johnson, Corina Contreras, and the other members of the City Council, our Assembly Member Tasha Bruner Horvat, and the San Diego Health and Human Service Agency. I would also like to give a shout out to my colleague Marta Alvarado on the school board for her advocacy. Thanks to the entire community effort, Vista and the surrounding communities are benefiting from a high-volume COVID-19 testing center. This center has averaged over 800 tests every single day for the past few months. This is a symbol that we are all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you to President Vargas. Your leadership and commitment to students and families has been tremendous. Over this past year, our staff from all parts of the organization, teachers, nurses, secretaries, nutritional staff, bus drivers, maintenance workers, security administrators, counselors, liaisons, and many others have stepped forward to meet the challenge of the pandemic with pride and courage. The time we have today cannot adequately outline the contributions and accomplishments that have been made during this year. However, I would like to recognize and thank all of our students, our parents, and employees for working together to move forward collaboratively, keeping our focus on students and their educational health, social, emotional needs. During this pandemic, our school district remains strong. We have a school board that recognizes the importance of engaging the community in the design of a school reopening plan that allowed parents to choose the learning model that best met their needs. All of our students started in a virtual learning model initially, and about half of our parents and students chose to remain in the virtual learning environment. While this is a new environment for students and our staff, we have seen great efforts to be flexible and adaptable to this new learning challenge. Indeed, many of our teachers have already developed innovative approaches to engaging students in their learning. While there is still room for improvement, we are appreciative of the patience and grace shown by our students and parents over these past 10 months as our team learns new systems and designs new strategies that work best in a virtual environment. The other half of our parents in our district chose in-person learning for their students. While our efforts for in-person learning in secondary schools were interrupted by the level of virus within our community, we did have literally thousands of students in middle and high school return to campus to connect with their teachers, support staff, and peers. Some schools had a brief time on campus, while other schools had more than 4 weeks. To quote a student at the high school with the shortest time on campus, she said, "I'm so excited about being able to meet my teachers in person. I feel more connected to my teachers and my fellow students. Thank you for allowing us to go back, even if it was brief." All of our elementary schools have embraced in-person learning over 3 months. In fact, our collective efforts to keep students and staff members safe and engaged in learning has been so successful that more than 15% of the parents who chose virtual learning decided to switch back to in-person learning for the second half of the school year. That's over 5,000 students learning on campus in person. This is a true testament to our teachers, staff, and administrators. Our blueprint for educational excellence and innovation is best described by our metaphor, the House of Learning. We have set forth 7 strategies that comprise our House of Learning. Each of these strategies has seen much success over the past 12 months. Here are just a few examples of the great work our district teams have done to support students and families in Vista. Strategy 1, Parents as Partners in Education. Our Family and Community Engagement Network of 18 liaisons has provided over 10,000 hours of direct community support with parent workshops and individual support. Our Child Nutritional Services has served over 85,000 pounds of California-grown produce and over 1 million meals. Strategy 2, 21st Century Facilities and Resources. Our Board of Education and Business Services Department have not only closed an $18 million budget gap, but have also started to rebuild our budget reserves and are just months away from a positive certification on our multi-year projection. Vista Unified has successfully completed the installation of energy-efficient solar systems on 21 campuses across the city. Our Measure LL Facility Bond Program has completed 7 projects in Phase 1 at $781,000 under budget. We have 7 new projects in process now. Strategy 3, social emotional systems of support. Our team of 5 social workers have performed over 750 individual home and family visits. Our team of 27 psychologists and 38 counselors have been providing individual and small group counseling sessions for all referred students. Our special education team has also responded to over 115 behavioral referrals. Strategy 4, high quality, flexible, and core curriculum. Even with the impact of the pandemic on our school, our teachers and support staff have made significant progress with teaching and learning. We have adopted a fully implemented a digital learning management system called Canvas for the entire school district, over 20,000 students. We have successfully implemented a new English language arts and mathematics curriculum at the elementary level that is more closely aligned to California state standards. We have dedicated a significant amount of time redesigning the English language development master plan. Our technology department purchased and installed over 10,000 new, more powerful student computers and over 1,500 teacher computers. This represents a $7.5 million investment in our students and staff. At the secondary level, our school teams are hard at work creating and implementing support systems for students who may be struggling to learn in a virtual environment, and for those students who may have experienced learning loss over the past months. Our high schools have implemented graduation checks for all seniors to ensure that they're on track for graduation and for their post-secondary plans. The school teams are in the preliminary stages of building a summer program for students to catch up on courses that they may be incomplete, or improve their grade point average, or complete courses that may enable them to graduate. Strategy 5, high quality, flexible, and adaptable staff. Perhaps the greatest success of our school reopening plan has been the incredible efforts and dedication of our teachers, our support staff, and our administrators. We have provided many hours of training to ensure that our staff is well prepared to be successful in this new environment. We have hired over 40 new teachers to support students across grade spans. We are currently in the process of augmenting our mental health team to better meet the needs of a growing demand within our community. Strategy 6, achievement monitoring and feedback. Our approach to assessment is migrating toward performance-based so that students are recognized for what they're able to do with their learning rather than how well they do on a static test. Vista Unified has recently overhauled the elementary assessment system called FastBridge to streamline assessments in English language, arts, and mathematics, and social emotional areas so that the assessment process is fast and efficient. Strategy 7, personalized learning. Now more than ever before, we are drawing on strategies that amplify students' strengths and interests as they navigate a virtual learning world. Thank you for including Vista Unified in this important event. I am proud to report that our district is strong. As we all reflect on this new year and look forward to a new day, not too far off in the horizon, when we get the pandemic under control, I would like to leave you with a quotation from a very famous author that we include in our high school curriculum, Maya Angelou. Here on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes, into your brother's face, your country, and simply say, very simply, with hope, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Doyle, and thank you, Mr. Vargas, for your comments today and for joining us. Our students are so lucky to have such devoted and caring leaders. And next, I'd like to briefly acknowledge our partner, SDG&E.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Scanlon. I'm a Public Affairs Manager with SDG&E, and we are proud to support the Vista State of the Community address today. Wanted to give a heads up about a fun project that we are working on at our substation site, which is located at the corner of Olive and Melrose. We've been working with the city and partnered with the Vista Boys and Girls Club to have local youth create some art that we can install along the fence line on the Olive side as a way to add some unique community character to our property there. So excited to see that project come to fruition. Keep a lookout for those of you that either live in the area or drive by there often. And also just want to say thank you to Rachel and the entire chamber for everything that you continue to do to support the community, and hoping that 2021 is better than the last. So go Vista.
Thank you, SDG&E, for supporting this program and for your ongoing partnership. At this time, I'd like to introduce our next guest, Dr. Jean Ma, Chief Medical Officer for Tri-City Hospital. Dr. Ma has served as an emergency department physician at Tri-City for over 19 years, during which time he was honored as San Diego's top doctor in emergency medicine 10 times. And Dr. Ma has served numerous administrative roles within Tri-City, and he brings with him a wealth of experience in business and practice management, along with demonstrated prowess in adapting to a constantly changing medical field to provide quality care. Constantly changing sounds about right. Dr. Ma, please join me.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter, Rachel, and distinguished guests. It's a pleasure and a bit of a surprise to be invited back, since nothing that I predicted for 2020 at this event last year was accurate. But hope springs eternal, unlike my golf game, and I'm eager to take this opportunity to redeem myself. Except this year, I think I'll resign my ambitions to becoming less of a medical futurist and stay on the safer path of just retelling our tumultuous journey in healthcare this past year. Of course, it all started in January when the World Health Organization identified a novel coronavirus originating in Wuhan, China, followed shortly by the first U.S. case identified later that month in Washington State. By early February, as the federal government declared a public health emergency, and it became increasingly clear that a pandemic of monumental proportions was likely to impact the life of every human being on this planet, we began planning for the worst. Hospitals across the state were asked to restrict visitation, create surge plans, participate in crisis care planning, and terminate elective surgeries. Countywide, hospital leadership began meeting regularly with county public health officials to address pressing concerns and share best practices. Within weeks, each hospital had submitted surge plans for basically Armageddon, increasing critical capacity to meet anticipated COVID needs based on predictive modeling, with plans in every facility to convert traditionally non-clinical areas, such as cafeterias and conference rooms, to expansive patient care areas. In March, as cruise ships off the coast of California attempted desperately to dock, we gradually began seeing our first surge of COVID-19 patients, and by mid-March, California issued an aggressive stay-at-home measure in an attempt to flatten the curve and preserve resources. Resources, of course, were hard to come by at this time, with limited personal protective equipment available on a national scale. Everything from masks to gowns to face shields to IV tubing to medications became hard to come by as organizations began hoarding everything that they could find out of fear in the face of unanticipated demand. For the next several months, as hospitals essentially shut down all services anticipating a surge, California effectively flattened the curve, and we collectively saw patient visits drop to historic lows. Public health messaging to stay away from hospitals was working, maybe a little bit too effectively. As hospital volumes plummeted and multiple services closed, we began seeing rises in every county and state of pre-hospital deaths, heart attacks, and strokes, as the public delayed seeking routine medical care to prevent these illnesses and also avoided ER visits. Ironically, hospitals had become, in many ways, the safest places to be despite rampant fear of entering hospitals. At Tri-City, with visitor restrictions, with COVID testing of everyone admitted to our hospital or coming for surgery, and strict infection control measures for staff, we knew we had created a safe haven. Our COVID Physicians Advisory Committee, what we call our COVID PAC, worked collaboratively with our nursing, pharmacy, and supply chain staff to quickly implement effective management strategies. As an example, our COVID PAC Zoomed regularly with colleagues in New York to gain insights that had not yet been published. So while the rest of the world was attempting to secure more ventilators, with insights gained from these discussions, we pivoted to securing high-flow oxygen devices to prevent people from being placed on ventilators in the first place, something unwritten about COVID in any manual or literature at that time, and later proved to be a saving grace. Additionally, this collaboration led us to implement steroid protocols early on, something that at that time had not yet been supported by the literature, but a few months later became standard of care for COVID. This gave our teams a significant head start on the management of COVID, and early on, we reported death rates less than a quarter of the national average. As you can tell, I'm really proud of the way our entire Tri-City community collaborated to deliver better care for our patients. July came and we saw our largest surge, and with each holiday, we would see a spike in hospitalizations roughly 10 days later. By the fall, hospital COVID volumes had dropped again, but with cold weather on the horizon, with multiple sequential holidays, most of us anticipated the worst. Week by week, our volumes began to rise, and with each successive holiday, we saw surge upon surge begin to diminish critical care capacity. By this winter, each hospital was asked to submit a crisis care plan in which the concept of doing what was best for an individual patient, what we call conventional care, where we normally reside, was replaced by crisis care, strategies used in times when resources to provide care for the masses would take precedence over an individual, or in other words, imagine battlefield triage in a hospital. Tri-City opted to adopt the crisis care plan developed by the state, and we began preparing for the worst. As predicted, a few weeks after Christmas and again after New Year's, surrounding counties ran out of ICU beds, and we in San Diego were dangerously close to the same fate. At Tri-City, we expanded into other areas to create additional ICU beds. We transferred lower acuity patients to the federal medical station, and have even discharged patients home with oxygen and with oxygen monitors when safe to do so. These strategies effectively brought us from the brink of disaster to what appears to be a slight downward trend that may prevent us from ever considering crisis care strategies. Unlike after Labor Day and Thanksgiving, though, hospitals are still at capacity in the most critical areas. And should people decide to have massive Super Bowl gatherings, we will test the limits of our county as a whole. Add to this the unprecedented staffing challenges we currently face in healthcare. The mental and physical toll from this pandemic have driven healthcare personnel to seek alternative careers or retire in numbers none of us have ever seen before in such short order. This remains one of the top, if not the top, concern of every hospital administrator in this county. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. So long as that train doesn't bear down on us before we get there. With the first delivery of vaccines in the third week of December, we've been vaccinating according to the permissible phases, starting with healthcare workers. And as of last week, we welcome community members age 75 and older. With the reduction in age to 65 plus as of this weekend, Tri-City will welcome thousands more community members this coming week to our vaccination center, which, by the way, can be accessed at tri-citymed.org. As you know, our mission is to advance the health and wellness of the community we serve. I can't think of a more important way to meet our mission than by being part of a community effort to help us overcome this pandemic. To that end, we've developed a three-pronged strategy which includes the following. Number one, our community vaccine pod on campus. Number two, collaborating with local fire in our county on larger community pods. And number three, becoming a distribution center for North County providers in order to scale vaccine efforts across hundreds of providers by virtue of having secured an ultra-cold storage device last July. And luckily, our COVID PAC team is a better predictor of the future than I am, and it was their foresight that allowed us to receive direct shipments of Pfizer vaccine direct from the manufacturer. As most hospitals and providers do not have such a device, we're working to become a North County distribution center to create a global, more comprehensive, scalable response. Once again, we are challenged with supply. With limited supply of vaccine available to date, even county-supported super sites like Petco Center have difficulty meeting the need and appointments that were already hard to come by, and they will be very limited in the coming weeks to try and meet the current permissible phase of everyone over age 65. At Tri-City, we're committed to deploying our doses as quickly as possible and are requesting additional doses on a weekly basis. I'll close by sharing a few things we've learned from this pandemic. First, we learned that sometimes it's good not to be large. Our size allowed us to be nimble, to respond quickly, and to implement necessary changes quickly, the value of which was amplified greatly during this pandemic. Second, we learned that the multiple layers of bureaucracy in healthcare can be streamlined without compromising safety. We tend to use quality as an excuse to delay in healthcare, but we can achieve good outcomes, safe care, and great quality, yet streamline approvals and eliminate redundancy. I point to the development of a COVID vaccine in record-shattering time as an example. Yes, necessity is the mother of invention, but are advances in healthcare and the way we deliver healthcare in the U.S. not in dire need of invention, even in normal times? I would argue it is. Third, this pandemic has brought our healthcare community together as a whole. The CEOs meet almost weekly, as do the chief medical officers. In fact, we have a group chat in between all our CMOs. And in between the lighthearted jabs at one another, we've shared so many practices and protocols with each other during this last year. Rather than each of us doing the same thing with limited resources, we share, we collaborate, we improve, and we implement. Big or small, military or civilian, pediatric or adult hospital, we are one community, and I look forward to actually getting to meet in person every one of my brothers and sisters that have been alongside me on this journey, and to continuing what we've created. Last, as we pivoted to telehealth out of necessity, which has been a great thing, no doubt, and I don't see that going away by any means, as we spent the last year putting up barriers between us and our patients, masks, shields, plexiglass, distancing, restricted entry for visitors, tents, you go here, you're not allowed here. Healthcare has become so cold, and that doesn't work. It's more imperative now than ever that we are in the business of human connection. I can't wait to take down the barriers, take down the mask, take down the shields, and hold that patient's hand, give them a hug, because by gosh, we both need it. That's been our superpower all along. It's a part of our healing and sometimes part of dying. If there's one thing that this pandemic has taught us, it's that putting barriers between patients and caregivers doesn't work for us. So ridiculously simple and obvious, yet it took a pandemic to make us realize what we miss the most about what we do. So here's to taking down the barriers into a brighter 2021. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Dr. Ma, for your comments and for your leadership during such challenging times. I know we all appreciate your lighthearted approach and your thoughtful work. Before I introduce our final speaker, I'd like to thank EDCO for our support of the State of the Community Address. EDCO continues to serve our community with excellent customer service. They're a sustainability leader in the waste management space, working with businesses and residents on multiple solutions. In fact, EDCO will roll out residential curbside organics collection beginning on March 1st, so it's pretty cool. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker today. Josh Williams is the president and founder of BW Research and has been leading and directing applied economic and market research for almost 20 years. His work tackles tough questions around the changing nature of work, the innovation of industry clusters, and the evolution of regions as they look to expand economic opportunity and offer a higher quality of life. Recently, his work has looked into measure how the pandemic has impacted regional industry clusters and the impact of it. It has on job quality, job vitality, and entrepreneurship. Josh, thank you for joining us. And I just want to mention also, please send any questions or comments for Josh or any of our other speakers to info@vistachamber.org.
Thank you, Rachel. What a great group to be a part of. I really appreciated that, the last speaker, and hopefully I can follow up with some information, maybe not quite as inspirational, but important for us nonetheless. Oh, and I actually have my clicker here. Great. I want to do a few things today. I want to talk to you about where work is, where employment is nationally in California, but also looking at Vista in the North County. I want to talk a little bit about how we think the world of work and employment is going to change, and how COVID-19 and the pandemic has impacted what our expectations are for the next 12 to 24 months. And lastly, and maybe the most important, I want to talk about some of the questions that we're asking as we look at how Vista, how North County, how California and the country are going to recover from the pandemic. Let's jump right into it. So one of the things, if we look at the pandemic really, started to impact us in terms of employment in February, March of 2020. And if we look at the last 4 years, we've seen employment increase over that 4-year period by about 11, 12 million. In a matter of a month or two, the country lost 21 million jobs. And over the last 7 to 8 months, we've seen it recover back most of those, but we're still actually 1 million or 2 million jobs below where we were in February of 2016. So a pretty significant change in how we look at jobs and employment nationally. If we look at it in terms of California, we can see, different unemployment levels. And to be honest, unemployment is not the entire picture. A lot of people have dropped out of the labor force. People now are working at maybe, multiple part-time jobs where before they were where they had a full-time job. But you can see just looking at unemployment alone, unemployment's doubled and some counties even tripled from February to November of 2020. In Vista, we see that our unemployment rate is just at the county average at about just over 7%. So let's talk a little bit about one of the things that the pandemic really did is, particularly in the beginning, it didn't affect all industries the same. And as we can see, as we look at some of our high-wage industry clusters in North County and in Vista particularly, industries like information and communication technologies, life sciences, and pharmaceuticals saw, very little decline in employment, while industries like building design saw, more considerable loss in employment. This first slide, or the slide you're looking at right now, really is looking at kind of our high wage clusters, and they saw declines of employment from anywhere from 1% to 2% to 10 to 11%. But your higher wages industries were considerably less impacted than our lower wage clusters. And you can see at that bottom, in the bottom corner, tourism, hospitality, and recreation saw a decline of employment of over 50%. That also is not only a low wage paying cluster, it also represents a relatively healthy or a large size of employment both in Vista, in North County, and really in San Diego County as a whole. And so one of the things that you saw is industries weren't impacted consistently. And even now we're starting to see that initially it was an industry effect, and now we're starting to see a larger structural and what we call cyclical impact of the economy. Let's look at this next slide. We spent a lot of time looking at job quality. And as you can see by this slide, over half of the jobs, majority of the jobs lost from February to October from the pandemic were what we call Tier 3 jobs. Tier 3 jobs tend to be lower wage, lower paying jobs. Tier 2 are your middle skill, middle wage jobs. Tier 1 jobs, your higher paying, typically have higher education requirements. This is really problematic in the sense that there were large portions of the economy that, and workers that had little to no impact, and then the impact was largely felt by your lower wage employees, creating a real bifurcation and a real challenge where certain parts of the economy felt little impact. We saw that with the industries like life sciences and ICT, while other parts were impacted considerably. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we think is going to happen. One of the other things that as we look at job quality too, the other thing, job volatility is important as well. And one of the things we're seeing is that jobs are starting to change, and they're changing faster. And we had some educators from Vista Unified up here earlier talking about that workforce development and that pipeline into jobs. Their job is going to become harder and more challenging and more important as we see more and more of these jobs changing. Next slide. Maybe I'm aiming it wrong. There we go. Okay. So what are some of the workforce issues that we expect over the next year? Again, for some areas, we're expecting a relatively slow recovery. Industries like specialty services, tourism, people that deal with business travel, that could take 12 months, 24 months to see a recovery. And to be honest, not only will we see a slower recovery, some of those employment is just going to change and may go away forever. Some of in Vista, we think that represents about 12% of your jobs in the city. Tourism, recreation, and then a lot of cleaning salons, dry cleaning salons, some of the other services, churches, they've really been negatively impacted. And the concern is that they will take anywhere from 12 to 18 months to recover. At the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing a really strong recovery in information and communication technologies. This is software, some of the hardware, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and then finance, insurance, real estate. A lot of these kind of higher end professional kind of positions have seen little to no impact and are actually starting to even see growth on a job and an industry perspective. And those represent about 13% of your jobs in Vista. You have kind of an equal impact. One of the things we're looking at changes in small business revenue. And small business in this definition is pretty large. It represents firms that have 100 or more employees. So a good portion, most of your employment in Vista and in North County. And you can see in the slide that some of the green zip codes have actually seen growth. And they tend to be connected to a few things. They tend to be connected to agriculture and food, which has done pretty well over the last 12 months. Also, retailers that are focused on, housing and home improvements, those kind of things have done relatively well, while other areas that are more connected to tourism have been really negatively impacted. And so something that we can look at in terms of moving forward. Let's spend about, and this is probably the most interesting thing, I think, that we can talk about. What are the questions and what are the data points that we want to look for at the next few months as we look at the recovery? I think one of the things, nationally, we've heard the slogan, build back better. And I would say that's nice, but I would also say maybe build back differently as well. And how do we respond to this kind of changing environment? So what are the questions that we're really looking at? And I'm going to go over real quickly the 5 of them, but I want to delve into 2 of them really quickly. Industry employment, I think, is really important. Looking at how industries are changing and how their employment within the industries are changing is something that we're tracking and looking at closely. Job quality and job volatility. Job quality needs to always be an important issue when you live in Southern California. Cost of living is high. A lot of times people are working and they can't afford to live. So we want to make sure that we're moving people into jobs where they can afford to live in the region, in our cities, in a region sustainably. But also, we also need to start paying attention to that job volatility. Jobs are changing, and the skills and the requirements, both the ability and their education, the training is changing. We need to kind of track that and look at that and see how that's changing. Unemployment profile matters. I mean, we've seen unemployment go up, but how much of that employment is due to short-term frictional employment and people just kind of changing jobs, and how much long-term and structural? How many people have lost their jobs and not able to find new ones? How many people are underemployed and are working at multiple jobs or unable to find full-time employment with benefits? So that unemployment profile is important. Recognizing, too, that there's localized impacts. I mean, one of the things that we've seen in looking at the economy from the post-pandemic world is even zip codes within the same city are seeing very different impacts based on their employment and their industry profile. So just because maybe San Diego County or even North County is recovering quickly, or maybe it's not recovering quickly, that may tell a very different story than what's happening in your local area. And things like transportation and these issues of self-sufficiency are becoming more important. And lastly, as we look at kind of dealing with a pandemic, this won't be the only really exogenous event that we're going to have to deal with. How do we develop stronger regional resiliency? I think one of the things that I think educators and teachers will really say is this pandemic has been really horrible, but in a way, I think one of the good things we've seen is kids particularly, but students and teachers have become more resilient. And how has we as a region become more resilient? So I want to go over a few things real quick, as we look at kind of regional differences. And employment. This is important. And the example I'm going to use is look at manufacturing. Now, in San Diego County, if we look at the rest of San Diego County, manufacturing only accounts for about 5% of employment. In North County, it's actually 10% of employment. So we're double the rest of San Diego County, and we're well above California's average, right? So many people may not know that because we're not actually necessarily these big factories and things like that. But if you look at how our manufacturing looks like, it's in things like aerospace. It's in things like navigational measure and small things that measure, medical instruments. It's in communication equipment manufacturing, the kind of work that Viasat does. Medical equipment and supplies manufacturing. So we have these manufacturing jobs, but they don't look like what you think manufacturing. They don't represent maybe the manufacturing of 10 or 15 years ago, where they're large manufacturers building really commodity-based goods. They're very specialized, and they require a high level of skill and of equipment to support it. How do we as a region and as a community really support these very specialized manufacturers is important. And then what is resiliency? Resiliency is really the ability to minimize an economic impact or a shock event or recover quickly from it. And so how do we think about that? And I know right now we're all really obsessed, or rightfully so, it's impacting our life as the pandemic, but there's going to be other sort of events that we're going to need to recover from. So I would say as we think about resiliency, let's think about four quick things. Industry cluster diversification. Being aware that as a region, as a community, as a county, we're not just focused on one or two industries, but we are looking at the diversity of our industries and also at their income streams. It's important that we have both import and export, meaning we're able to sell things abroad, but also support our community in terms of those revenue sources. You know, we're seeing now, particularly with the impact on the Tier 3 workers, the need for really looking at financial stability. And one of the ways we do that is we look at measuring household debt to income ratios and really looking at how maybe certain communities are really have a high level or a low level of income to debt. Am I saying that right? Yes. So that income to debt within the household is an important thing to consider. Looking at and supporting economic agility, entrepreneurs, the ability really to commercialize innovation that we're seeing in the area. And then lastly, looking at our infrastructure for healthcare, for bandwidth, for the electrical grid, for transportation, for water. These are all things that we want to look at as we think about resiliency for our region. So with that, Rachel, thank you very much.
Wow, Josh, thank you for that really thorough presentation and for highlighting really where we are and where we need to go. I'm wondering, Josh, if I could bug you to pop back up on stage for a moment. I do have a question for you. I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit, thank you for highlighting Vista in your comments today, but I wanted to ask if you could talk just a little bit about maybe some of the North County collaboration that has maybe, I know you know a bit about that, and if you could comment about how that might be a benefit to our region in this recovery process.
So I'm sorry, say that again.
If you could just talk about just the regional collaboration when it comes to jobs and recruitment and all of that, and if that's going to be a benefit for for North County specifically in the recovery process.
Yeah, you know,
Come to the mic, please.
Okay. Sorry. One of the challenges that North County faces, so North County by itself, if we cut off kind of the top of North County, it would be the 42nd largest state, right? One of the challenges we have is we have a big county and there's a lot going on. But if we just even look at North County alone, there's a lot happening, a lot going on. But there isn't one single large city. It's not really driven by one part. So one of the things that North County has done a really good job is starting to look at the education environment, the commercialization, and some of the the innovative industries, and really looking at employers that are pulling up from a workforce that you may have a business in Vista, but you're pulling for workers in Oceanside and Carlsbad, and you may have may have a teaching students in Escondido, but a lot of the businesses that you're supporting are in San Marcos and like that. So really that ability, these small cities to work together and really share the innovative industries and the work that they're doing both in terms of education and training, as well as those support services, I think is really important and has really allowed this area to kind of, when this area being North County, to kind of thrive. It's almost its own autonomous area.
Don't go far. I have another one for you, Josh. So we received a question from the audience, thank you, just about specifically women in the workforce. How many women generally have left the workforce during the pandemic, if you know that? And what is the long-term economic impact of that, either to families or to our region, as women potentially step away from their jobs during this pandemic?
It's a great question, because one of the trends that we've seen if we look at the last 10 years has really been women moving more and working more in the workforce and representing a larger portion of the workforce. And really with the pandemic, that really has reversed. And the largest losses of employment, and really the largest group that have dropped out of the labor force have been women, particularly women that are about the age that have young children, and the impact that has. And so there is a concern that their ability to come back in, particularly given, we don't know how long until, students will get back. That's why the emphasis on getting kids back in school, and it's great to hear what Vista Unified is doing, but that importance really can't be overshadowed. I'd say the other challenge, though, from a workforce perspective, when you think about a lot of kids' first jobs are in tourism and hospitality, and they learn a lot of important skills. And I'm really concerned that a lot of that first job isn't there right now. And those kids really need to figure out how to develop some of those kind of initial job skills that you learn at your first job. And those first jobs aren't really available as they were. So the impact on both women, on on young workers are both things that we need to think about, and we really need to be strategic. And again, get those kids back in school as quickly as we can to minimize those impacts, particularly. The HR needs, one of the last things, even with the high unemployment we've had, employers have stated that we've been talking to them are still having over 25% in San Diego County, in a study we just did, over 25% are still having great difficulty finding the workers they need in an environment where you have 6, 7, 8% unemployment, which is historically low. So this workforce challenge will only become greater as we start to recover and the economy comes back to full.
Thank you, Josh, and thanks for taking your seat in the hot spot there. So that concludes all the questions that we received, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to Vista State of the Community Address. Thank you to our distinguished guests for joining us today, and we also want to thank Hildreth Media Group for their technical expertise in helping us to present this live stream event. We're grateful for the connection here at the Film Hub to such knowledgeable industry leaders, and we wish you all the best. Happy New Year, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.